Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm excited to be here. Today, we're going to be discussing the topic, Discover the Automation Infrastructure for the Modern Scalable Law Practice. So who am I to be able to talk to you all about this? My name is Brittany Hernandez, and I am the Global Ambassador to Law Schools for Gavel. I'm also a lawyer, so I practice intellectual property and entertainment law. So I understand the needs of the legal professional, and I'm very excited to share with you some of the different automation tools that I use, as well as obviously the one that I represent, which will be highlighted. But I'm also going to really make this less of a big advertisement for Gavel, but also just a way of sharing value of how you might be able to start thinking about automating your practices. So I'm going to show you how different tools that you might be already using link together and how you can add Gavel into your stack so that you can really automate your documents and create what we're going to call legal products. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I had the pleasure of being at the Future Law 2023 conference in Estonia earlier this year with many of you who are going to be on the call and the organizers of this call. So thank you to ELTA and Legid for inviting me. And that was a really interesting conference because we got to really talk to each other about legal engineering and design and coming up with these different insights and perspectives on how we can automate our practices, but not only automate them, but also scale them using technology. So that's really going to be our focus, is around not only just automations and being more efficient, but also that aspect of scaling and turning these different automations into legal products using these different tools. So for our agenda today, we're going to start with a conversation around software democratization and how this movement really empowers experts to be developers. We'll then move into a conversation around emerging opportunities and how different lawyers and law firms are using Gavel to access new markets, provide price certainty for their customers, and diversify their offerings outside of the billable hour and one-to-one consultation structure. Additionally, we're going to go into a conversation and a practical demonstration around how you might link together a traditional flow if you're using a practice management tool and let's say a CRM, and how you can utilize the information that's already been collected in your kind of internal traditional legal practices delivery. And then we'll go into a conversation around standalone legal products that would be more client facing. So we'll cover both the internal and external uses of these types of tools. So with that, let's go ahead and start with an overview and conversation around this idea of software democratization and what that means for lawyers. So what we mean by software democratization is the idea that traditionally, when you wanted to build out some type of automation or application, you would need to hire a team of developers or software engineers in order to build something for you, custom made for your firm or for yourself. Now, this can be cumbersome because it can be expensive. It can take a lot of time. So for all of these reasons, what we're seeing more and more is the kind of uprising of all of these different no code kind of elements, and also just easy to use platforms, whether it be no code, low code, or just having kind of a block by block component style of building. So what this allows us to do as experts and professionals who are in our industry is that no longer is it only the legal Zooms of the world that are going to be able to access the market with digital legal products. Instead, we now get the opportunity to build our own systems, applications, and automations with our own two hands and our own teams without having to outsource to developers. So with this software democratization, we're really seeing this kind of advent of a new wave of how lawyers are delivering their services to their clients, and you're going to see some of the examples today with different case studies that we'll go through. So this is really exciting because it really empowers you as a legal professional to be able to kind of think about how you might be able to take your templates, turn them into legal products, and kind of going from a more scalable approach to how you might be able to deliver services to your clients. So with that, I thought it might be useful before we go into the case studies to have some context about what we're talking about when we're saying Gavel and automation and workflows and applications and all of these different things. So what Gavel is a legal tech platform that serves as this kind of automation infrastructure. And you're going to see what that means when we go into the more practical traditional flow and productization segments of this particular conversation. And we talk about the modern scalable law practice because we're in this really interesting time in history where we're having this big shift in the legal space towards having more and more people consume legal services online, and in this kind of more DIY unbundled service structure. So what Gavel does is it serves as that kind of automation foundation or infrastructure for you as the law firm or lawyer to be able to build out those automations and tools. So this is an easy to use platform that has elements of, in that kind of space of software democratization that allows you to not only automate your documents, but also create powerful internal and external apps that not only increase efficiency, but also allow you to scale that practice. So I thought it might be useful to show you what it actually looks like. So from here, we'll just quickly go over what I call the 4 different views of Gavel. The first of which would be when you create an account and you are the admin, you would see a dashboard that looks like this. And this is where this is called your playground dashboard. And what this allows you to do is to create new workflows, either traditionally, which I'll show you one option, or we recently launched an AI feature that allows you to drag and drop your documents into our AI blueprint, which will analyze your documents and pull out where it thinks you are saying that you need different what's called variables to be placed. So things like client's name, address, things like, child name or whatever else. And it's going to give you suggestions on where what questions you could have. It's going to pre-populate for you and so on. But that's just to say this is where you are creating your different workflows and managing these together, sharing them between different people and assigning them to clients and so on. So this is that first view, and that's going to take us right into our second view. So if you want to create a new workflow, all you have to do is say create new workflow. And then, like I mentioned, it's giving you the option to either start from scratch or to start automating documents through Gavel Blueprint, which is that AI feature. So let's just do one from scratch so you can see a little bit more of the traditional editor. So it's going to prompt you to give it a name. So in this particular case, I'm just going to call it like Demo ELTA by Legid. So I know what to do later, but you would give this something like California LLC formation documents or something a little bit more fancy. But the point is to show you that it takes us directly from our playground dashboard into what's called the editor. So from the editor, this is where we're actually getting to use that kind of easy to use like block component style of building, where all we have to do, even if we were just going to go right now and just save what we have when we haven't really done anything, and we run this, what this does is it actually has created a link for you that you could then share with someone else. And obviously it doesn't do much right now, but it's to demonstrate this idea of that software democratization, which is that you didn't have to build this or code this page from scratch. You didn't have to design all of the different aspects of this button, making the rounded corners and the color and the hover and making the cursor turn into a hand and all these different pieces. But you do have these functional default aspects that you just need to then build out a little bit more in order to build your application. So this is this idea of rapid development from the expert who is the lawyer building as a developer would, just without having to use any developers or code. So let's say we're going to build this out a little bit more and we want to add different blocks. All you would need to do is find where you want to change something. Let's make this to where this is something like a let's do like something like a patent letter generator or whatever else, or let's do a bed bug letter generator. So all you would do is if you want to create, let's say you start with a template that you have, or if you're just going based off of a lot of logic and rules, what you do is you say add question, and then you would choose which question type you want. And I'll just give you an example. Let's say that we were going to start with a text question, which is something like, what is your name? This is completely customizable. And when we're talking about a variable, we're talking about referring specifically to this particular input and block and information in other places in the workflow, as well as in an output type of document. So let's just say something like first name, and you could have other You can kind of do this however you would like. In AI generator and Blueprint, it's going to suggest different variables for you, and it will fill out this information for you already, but just so that we can see kind of what the differences are. So automatically we have this built out to where we have our question that we made, we have our input, and so on. So this is a very basic way to show you a third view, which is the live application run link view. So here we see that we had the playground dashboard where we were kind of managing all of our different applications. We went into the editor view where we can create individual applications. We have this live run link view where we can actually interact with the live version of this. And then the fourth view that I want to mention is that around the different user roles. So when you're an admin, you're able to have and assign different user types. So for example, you have an admin, which is where you have access to things like billing and so on. You have a builder view, which is somebody who is also able to create workflows and share them back and forth between other people on this particular account. And I'll show you that one quickly as well. Then you have what's called organizational user, where the organizational user isn't somebody who can build workflows, but can take them and manage their data. And then you have a basic user, which is by default what happens, where if you haven't assigned them any other role, where they're going to be able to see their past sessions, they're going to be able to be assigned workflows. So as you see here, assigned, they can see their past sessions and so on. Now, what this is doing is it's allowing us to have a little bit of context before we talk about how lawyers are actually using these different features. So now that you understand kind of what is Gavel and what are we even talking about, we can go into now a conversation about how people are taking that ability to create things from scratch very quickly and turning them into businesses that can actually be considered kind of tech startups as well. So this is now moving us into that conversation around emerging opportunities, which is how we're using Gavel to create access to new markets, as well as alternative ways to serve clients. So I have some favorite different examples that I can share with you. So what we're seeing is all of these people have started with legal backgrounds and they've recognized and practiced traditionally, and they have this kind of insight into the fact that there's a way to get into this idea of how to diversify and change how they provide services to different consumers, but also in different market categories. So as business people, you all understand and know that we have different segments of the economy where you have things like business to consumer or business to business, where business to business breaks down into different categories of things like small to medium enterprise or business, as well as bigger, more enterprise customers. So depending on where you want to land and what your service offers, you're going to be able to have a different approach to using Gavel to get into that market. So for example, let's say that you are Hello Divorce, which offers DIY divorce services. This is going to be a different model than somebody like an LCM Legal who focuses on tax matters for like things like intercompany agreements for massive corporations that have multiple different offices around the world, and they need to be able to reconcile and create intercompany agreements between these different organizations. So they might have a smaller volume of clients at a higher price tier versus Hello Divorce, which is a more high volume and lower pricing tier for who their customer is. We're also seeing this in the government as well as in the access to justice or third sector space, where you can see like A2J Tech, for example, during COVID-19 was able to rapidly develop an application that generated a letter arguing against an eviction notice from their landlord, citing a law that was passed that allowed for people to kind of get eviction relief. So they were able to serve 40,000 tenants in 2 months with this approach of software democratization, where this company could rapidly create this type of application, put it out in the market, and access not a one-to-one client model, but a one-to-many model where these people were able to serve. These people were served from all over. So that's just to kind of show you that we have the ability to access lots of different markets. And one of the things I like to mention is, if you notice from these different kinds of examples, we have this idea of niching down to scale up. So with Hello Divorce, they specialize in DIY divorces, but also their kind of sweet spot is amicable or uncontested divorces with a little bit of mediation as well. So they've really honed in and niched down to who that customer is, and they've really understood that market from a pricing tolerance perspective and from a services delivery and needs perspective, as well as upsell opportunities for financial consultants, additional resources for them as far as emotional support and so on. Horse Law, for example, focuses specifically on exactly that, horse law, which is like how if you want to buy a horse, if you want to lease a horse, if you want to sell a horse, they've really niched down to that particular market so that it can really understand and serve those customers very well. So I'm going to give you some examples and show you what some of these platforms actually look like before we move on to some more of the practical demonstrations as well. So if we go over to Hello Divorce as this initial example, they're very interesting because this was started by a lawyer called Erin Levine. And what she did was she was practicing family law and still is a lawyer and has Levine Family Law Group. And what she found, though, after she kind of was introduced to Dorna, the CEO and founder of Gavel, was that she could have this opportunity to reach a market that was previously unavailable to her. So what we see in this kind of idea of the access to justice gap, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, is the fact that you have on one side of the spectrum, you have people who are very low income, who might qualify for things like pro bono or reduced fee legal services. And on the higher end, you have individuals who are, let's say, more able to pay for something like a $300 or $500 an hour rate plus, and then you have, if you're in the business to business market, businesses that are willing to pay, thousands of dollars for time with a lawyer. But there's this gap in between of people who don't quite qualify for pro bono or reduced fee services and don't quite have the funds to pay for some unknown amount of money of hours for a lawyer to work on their particular matter. So what we see is Hello Divorce really taking advantage of that gap in the market, which is that somebody is willing to pay to solve their problem, but they need a little bit of a different approach. They need to be able to maybe they're more willing to do part of the work themselves so that they can save a little bit of money. So that's really the niche that Hello Divorce has found, which is that if they are able to unbundle their services, so they're saying basically, why don't you do this part and we'll give you a reduced amount for the cost of that. And if you'd like us to be involved, you can just pay a little bit more at a different tier and we'll help you make sure that those forms are accepted by the court. We'll give you 5 hours of mediation or whatever else. So if, for example, we take a look at their website, what we're going to see under their pricing and their different plans is one, that they were actually able to operate more as a startup. So they started as a law firm and still have that law firm. And then they have this kind of spin-off company that is this more automated DIY, different access to different markets element. So with this, we're seeing them raise venture capital. So they have different investors in different seed rounds, as you would if you were an Airbnb or whatever other company, goes through this type of process. What we're also seeing that's quite interesting is the fact that we're seeing people like Jack Newton, the CEO and co-founder of Clio. For those of you that know what Clio is or use it yourself, as an investor in this type of startup, which is built with Gavel as the back end of their forms. So in this particular scenario, let's just use California as an example. And I know this is the European Legal Technology Association kind of event, so many of you will be not from the United States, but you can see what people are doing in the US and kind of, and all over the world as well. But just this is one example. So let's just say where I'm from in California. So as I mentioned, you can see them tiering and packaging legal services in a completely different way than we're used to. which would be something like schedule a call with us, even though they still have a free intro call, but we would lead them to understanding which package would be best for them. And as I mentioned, we're saying if you're willing to take over filling out this part, then you can pay a lower amount. But if you want to have forms for both spouses and you want us to review them and guarantee court acceptance, then you can just pay a little bit more and we'll handle that aspect of it. So that's how they're breaking up these different services, and also providing the opportunity for people to pay in monthly payments instead. And this is kind of this move towards packaging and providing legal services in a way that people are more accustomed to consuming products generally. So when we go to Amazon, we search for something that we need, we put it in our cart and we check out, and then we get that, in a day or whatever else. And in this case, we're providing, let's say, legal products that are documents that are automated, for example, where the person has the ability to put this in their cart, pay for it like they would if they were buying something on Amazon, and instantly get access to that and start filling out the information. So this is something that I think is really interesting to see, and we're seeing it all over the world as well. For example, in Sweden, we have also this additional element of a subscription model or option where they have this hybrid where they have the option to either subscribe for a monthly amount and get access to, this is like the company subscription model where they get unlimited number of users. They get to have a chat with a lawyer when you prepare your documents. They get all of the agreements for companies and individuals included in this membership, and so on and so forth. But you can see that we're starting to see this kind of gradual move towards packaging our services as lawyers in different ways that have a lot more price certainty for the end consumer. So whether that be a business or an individual, somebody can say, I know that I will pay this amount and I will receive these 4 things. So that's a little bit different from our kind of traditional billable hour structure, which I find really interesting. What we're also seeing is this idea of packaging different workflows together. So if you notice when we were on our workflows section in the Playground dashboard, even when we went into our kind of individual editor and live view, these are like individual workflows and applications with their own individual links. However, what we're also seeing is the need for Gavel users to be able to bundle or package different workflows together. So this would be really helpful, for example, in things like estate planning, where somebody wants to have things like a power of attorney and a will and a trust and all of these different documents that are necessary as part of their plan, but not necessarily wanting to have one massive monster of a workflow that asks for all of these millions of things. So maybe they want to do one at a time and pay for one thing at a time or at different stages. So I think a good example of this is Indus.store. So Indus.store has this kind of DIY bundle store for clients, where they are a Silicon Valley law firm where they have all of these different kind of opportunities to help service their clients, but they have created this type of bundle format where in California, for example, if they are somebody is looking to have an estate plan or create their will, you can see these different services are very transparent in what is included. If you click on, let's say, estate plan for a couple, for example, it tells you the purpose, what's included, certification of trust, declaration of trust, a pour over will for each of the spouses, financial power of attorney, et cetera, et cetera. So somebody who's going to purchase this will see exactly what they're going to get, what add-ons are available for each of these as well, how much they're going to cost, and they can buy it right now. If we say buy now, it's going to take us over to a page that looks like this. It's going to have us create an account on Indus Counsel's their domain here. And we're going to get our own client portal that looks like this. And this is actually Indus Counsel's. I just kind of went through the process as I would if I was someone who wanted to buy this. And when I say start session, it's going to tell me that I'm going to have the payment required before document generation. So it means that I can kind of go ahead and start this and get taken straight over to the the workflow that I need to complete, or if there was multiple workflows within this particular estate plan, then I'd be able to fill out each one in different sections. So it's going to go through, and you see how this is exactly the same as what we were starting to create here. And now you're seeing that live on a particular website where somebody can go in, actually purchase it, and fill out the information right away. And then when they get to a certain point, and all of this information is being stored within their account since they're logged in. So they'd be able to kind of save this to continue later. They wouldn't lose any of their information. And they can kind of go through this process of filling out their legal name, their email addresses, the phone number, and all of those different details. And they'll be able to see where they are in the process with this progress bar along the way. So those are a few examples of how this is being used by different lawyers in the market that I think are really interesting. There's lots of other examples as well. But since we have such a limited time in this particular event, I just wanted to just highlight and show you a couple of things that I thought were pretty interesting to see in the market. So I want to go through a practical demonstration of how this might flow from a traditional, more internal perspective. And I think this is good to start with before we go into productization, because it's a really good starting point for people who are just getting into this idea of automating aspects of their practice, so that they can get kind of all of the kind of skill acquisition, the kind of understanding of strategy and mindset before they try to start building products, which you still can right away. But I just think it's a kind of like a safe entry point and a very easy way to kind of start working with things that you might already use in a traditional kind of mindset of somebody starts as a stranger, they become a prospect, we convert them into a client, we deliver services, and then we provide them an upsell opportunity at the end, which continues this cycle of, attracting, engaging, and delighting, and having these different promoters, like you can see in the kind of HubSpot flywheel approach to things. So when we think of it that way, what we can do is consider how this might flow from beginning to end. And all of the tools I'm going to be showing you are those kind of easy to use software democratization movement, no code, low code types of software. And so for me, for example, I built this website by myself using a tool called Softr. And so let's just say that this is your kind of entry point where someone saw your ad on Google Ads, or they saw your post on LinkedIn or whatever else, and they decided they wanted to work with you because you had different like thought leadership posts and you seemed like an expert. So they come to your website, which was built using no code as well by yourself. So let's say that you have the contact us button and the book a free consultation button linked up to a form that's in your CRM that you use. And when I say CRM, I mean customer relationship management. If you don't have one already, this is really valuable because it consolidates and gives you a single source of truth for your contact information. So let's say that you have this form built out with HubSpot. Some people might use Clio Grow or other types of software. I know Crestback is coming on the scene now as well, recently launched within this community as well. So shout out to them as well. I'm not sure exactly how all of their different pieces flow, but the idea being that you would want everything to be connected together. And I'm going to show you how this all feeds together into Gavel as well, so that you don't have multiple entry points for data that you've already collected. So let's say, for example, you have this form that was filled, just a basic contact form where somebody fills out this information from your website and it feeds into your customer relationship management software. You also have the opportunity for people to book a time with you where they can get a free 15-minute chat with a lawyer as this kind of way of inviting new people to do business with you. And now in either case, you're going to have that information fed into your customer relationship management database, whether that be, whatever, Grow, CRM, whatever else it is. But having a centralized place for you to collect your data. In this particular case, I think it's valuable to use something like a HubSpot because it links directly to Clio Manage if you were using that as your practice management solution. And this is going to be kind of relevant to the discussion of Gavel because we have a Clio integration as well. So what we're seeing is that the information that's entered either in the contact us or book a free consultation is automatically added into our CRM without us having to do anything, which is also, since it's linked through this app marketplace integration, to Clio automatically. And let's say I kind of already did a little example prior to this, just for the sake of time, that I submitted a form using the contact us button. I said something like, sorry, let me go back to conversations. So this goes into a centralized inbox that anyone who's on your team would be able to see. I submitted a form saying I'm looking for help with my illegal issue. For kind of purposes of this demonstration, you'll see I later changed this email, but that's just to say, because I have this linked together to Clio Manage, I don't have to do anything else, and it's automatically going to take the information that was submitted here by that person and put it into Clio Manage as well. Now, so let's go ahead and see, so let's say in this process, they've reached out to us, we've interacted with them a little bit, we had an initial call with them, we've engaged them as a customer, or a client, and what they're doing is they want us to submit a patent application because they've developed a new type of camera for filmmakers. So in this particular scenario, I've created a matter here in Clio where I have my contact over here. I have a related contact, which is the information for the USPTO, since I'm going to be filing with them. And then I have here the information around the responsible attorney, kind of things around how much the firm is billing them per hour or whatever else if you have some other thing. So right now we're just talking about the traditional flow, and we'll talk about productization after. So just to say, we have all of the information that was initially collected from our website directly fed into our customer relationship management software, which is linked automatically to our practice management solution, which is also directly integrated with Gavel. So here you can see, if we can see on my screen, at the bottom it says Clio Manage. So all you have to do is click about 3 buttons to allow access to your Clio account, and it's going to pull all of the information that's already created within your account here, even custom fields, and allow you to use them in your workflows. So what I've done is just create a very simple workflow, just the same way that I showed you when we were first doing that initial, what are the different views. And I created this Clio patent letter demo for you, which is where I want a client letter, which is the notice of patent application filing, to be automatically generated and emailed to the client with just 3 clicks. So in the traditional way that you might do this without automation or technology or using any of this, is you might have your standard template, something like this, for example, where it says, make sure you replace this part and put in the date for today, and so on and so on and so on. And then whichever is the person who's in charge, make sure their signature block is showing. So maybe what you would do is you would duplicate this, and you would go through and manually change everything and say, okay, the responsible attorney is Jeremy Hernandez, and the date today is October 19th, 2023, and so on and so on and so forth. Now, what you can do instead of having to do that is you can just use Gavel and create 2 questions. Because in our template, we need to populate a lot of information that we already have from collecting through this kind of flow. And I just said add question, and I chose Clio Matter, which needs its own page, but I just use that one here. And all I've said is, which matter are you preparing this letter for? And that's referring to the matters that I have here. So here I have 3, and I'm referring to this one. So from there, I was also able to just give it a quick variable name, so I can refer to this in other places. And I've also said, what date did you file this patent application with the USPTO? These are just 2 questions. I also have one page where I just made some what's called invisible logic, where we can do things like, if patent filing date is some value, then I want this to be the case of whatever value said. So there's lots of stuff you can do with invisible logic, but for right now, all I wanted to do was to just pull, since we don't have a particular variable for this that is visible for the system for me to be able to then send it as an email. I kind of need to pull it from the system to kind of turn it into a variable. So I just turned this into a variable called client email, and I've turned this into just one that I was able to collect from the word add-in. So Gavel has a word add-in that you can quickly insert by going to Insert, Add-ins, Get Add-ins, go over to the store and search for Gavel and add it like this and say Continue. And what that's going to do, it's going to add this to your ribbon. So once you have your account, you'll be able to connect this using a very simple process that uses an API key, which allows you to see all of the different workflows that you've created in your account, and you can interact with those variables in this kind of click and drop way. So here, what I've done is I've been able to, with just having these two questions, and actually really just from this one, I'm able to access all of the information that's related to this matter, including the contact and all of their information as well. And I can use that anywhere I want in my document. So here I've decided to add the responsible attorney's name here. So I can see that what's going to get pulled in is Jeremy. I can put in today's date by default. I can put in all of this information just by clicking and adding. So for example, let's say I wanted to put in the client's first name. I can just search for client. Clear matter is the variable I gave it in the example I was giving. I can look for their first name. So I have clear matter, client first name, and I can just say insert variable. I can even change the format of this. So I can just say, I want this to be all caps and insert the variable now. And I can, I can change this to first letter capital or whatever else you want to do. So you're going to be able to kind of change the different formatting from there as well. And if I wanted to make any updates to this, I could just select the document I want to replace from within my my workflow that I created. I can select it here and say updating Gavel without doing anything else. So I just want to show you quickly what this looks like when you run it through, and then I'll go into productization in the last few minutes. I know that we're not going to have a lot of time for questions, but you are going to be able to just reach out to me afterwards as well. I'm very happy to meet one-to-one or to answer any questions by email as well. But I do want to get through this part really quickly. So we've created this 2-question workflow in Gavel where I've just added that output document after I kind of went through and put the variables where I want them to go. I've changed the name to say patent application filed for, and then I pulled the information from their names. And I've decided to send the finalized documents to client email, this variable I created here. And then I just updated the settings to have a nice different style with different colors and branding. I've customized the end messages to let me know that the letter's been emailed and that or if it failed, that the information wasn't submitted. We can also update our email automations template here, which is going to be shown to the client or the person who's receiving this at the end, which here says, we filed your patent application. Hello, person's first name, blah, 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 whatever you want to say. When we say run, so this would be used internally because it has your private information on your matters. I would just choose whichever matter this is for. I would choose the date that I filed the patent application. I would just say continue. And it's automatically going to generate this letter and email this. It says this letter has been emailed to the client, the patent application filed for, and it's pulled that information. If we take a look, it's already gone through and put in all of that information for you, pulling from your Clio account. And we see that we've already received, in this particular case, I had my email in Clio be one that I could show you. So it's getting fed to me. But you'll see that here, which is that we filed your patent application. Hi, Brittany. Attaches a letter letting you know that we've just filed your patent application. We'll let you know once we've heard back from the USPTO with any updates. And best, and this is being pulled from the system as well, the responsible attorney, where we can see that the letter's been attached here with all of the information that we pulled from our system. So that's how quickly and easily you're going to be able to do things like have a more efficient practice on that side of connecting everything and integrating everything together without having multiple areas where you need to input data that you already have. So we're just taking advantage of how these different systems already integrate together and using that information in our documents in order to automate more quickly and have these kind of email automations go ahead and communicate with our clients automatically. You could get even more fancy if you wanted to and use Zapier to make it to where, let's say you're using Clio and you have a task to file the application for this matter. Maybe you could make a Zap that makes it to where once this task is completed, you automatically have that Gavel workflow be run through and send the email. So you don't actually have to do that manually at all. You just have to click that the task was completed. So there's lots of different fancy things you can do, but I wanted to visually show you how you can do these. So in the last 5 minutes, I want to just cover a little bit around productization, which we've kind of covered a little bit already in the sense of showing you the different examples. So this is just to say that you can kind of do the same thing, and to show you how you might want to do that, and also a little bit of examples. So one of the first things that you could do when you get to the productization side is to do what the other kind of examples I showed you is. You have your own website, your own standalone legal products, and you utilize lots of different aspects of the sales funnel. So let's say lead generation. So that means, let's say you create something where it'd be very easy for someone to consume. It would be free, and it would be something that has the purpose of giving them value, but having a little bit left to be desired in the sense that they want more, or craving. It kind of creates this craving to go on to the next step, to be upsold to the next standalone product, for example, or your services. And then you have the idea of the standalone product, which can be sold, like you could see, in the tiered pricing system, or a la carte, or in bundles, or whatever else. So I'll show you this in a moment, but I quickly wanted to cover that if you aren't really at this stage where you want to build a whole website out, and you want to, you don't have all of these ideas yet, you just maybe have 1 or 2 ideas that you can build really quickly, or you want to take the time to build first, but you don't have a whole storefront in mind, what you could do is build it, and we can host it on our Gavel marketplace, where you're going to see lots of different areas of the law, different pricing points. You're going to see lots of different things on there, and you can have your app available on there as well, and we don't take a commission at this time. So another thing you can do, if you're thinking about, maybe you don't have a lot of sources of funding and you want to be able to access that sort of more pro bono access to justice space, we are seeing that people are able to get grants so that they can create these kind of open source documents that people can generate from the Gavel marketplace. So things like an SSA letter to a client, or a post order document, or whatever else. This Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services was able to kind of do that way. So if you're not really on the side of venture capital, but maybe more on the side of grants and access to justice, then you can kind of consider this option as well. So I'll quickly show you one example of how you can build this more like DIY solution. So if you go back to the website that I showed you that I built, you can build out something like this. You can have all of these different buttons and can customize it the way you want. And you can also have that kind of DIY solution store where somebody can say, like, which copyright application should I use? And when they click it open, they're going to be able to be taken to a modal where they're going to be able to see their the different questions that are asked for this particular workflow. You can give them different options that they can then go through and kind of filter. They can search. Let's say if I'm looking for one around veterans housing, for example, it's acting, like I said, like a storefront that somebody's used to, where they can see how much it costs, they can learn something about it, they can go straight to it and consume it right away, whether it has a paywall or not, and that it's going to be right within your environment and branded along with your particular colors and so on as well. Okay, so since I only have 1 minute left, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. 45 minutes goes by so fast. So I'll just say thank you so much for your time and attention. I'm really excited to share all this with you. There's so much, I feel like there's always so much more I have left to say, but hopefully this gave you a sense and idea of how you might be able to see what's happening in the market, get a few ideas and some inspiration about what you might be able to do as well. See how you're able to incorporate this within your own practice right away in a more traditional flow, but also consider productizing and scaling as well, so that you can create solutions that aren't only one-to-one, but one-to-many as well. Feel free to reach out to me at Brittany@gavel.io, or check us out and start a free trial for 7 days at gavel.io. And if you have any questions around certifications and training in the tool once you get hooked on it, which I know you will, you can also visit my website at cormeumacademy.com, where I have certification courses. So thank you so much to Holger and Valentine for allowing me to be here with all of you. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen if I can find that button here, and see if there's any questions, or if you want to wrap us up, Holger.
It seems there are no questions in the chat, so
No
maybe
problem.
somebody wants to switch on the microphone or want me to switch on the microphone.
No problem.
No?
And like I said, if there are any questions and you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at Brittany at Gavel.io.